In 1843, a boy stood alone in a dusty attic, his small hands coaxing a haunting melody from a violin. The notes drifted through the quiet town, enchanting everyone who heard them. But here's the thing. That song, so vivid, so unforgettable, wasn't supposed to exist yet. How could a child play a piece from the future? Stay with me as I unravel a mystery that defies time itself. I stood in the attic of my great-uncle's estate, sifting through boxes of forgotten relics. The air was thick with dust, and the light barely crept through a cracked window. My fingers brushed against an old violin case, its leather worn but intact. I opened it, revealing a delicate instrument, its wood still gleaming faintly. A yellowed sheet of music lay tucked inside, titled simply, Melody in a Minor. The notes looked oddly familiar, yet strangely out of place. I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't just any song. My curiosity sparked. I had to know more. I carried the violin downstairs, the weight of history in my hands. The estate was ancient, built in the early 1800s, and full of secrets. I wondered who had played this instrument last. Was it my great-uncle? Or someone else entirely? The sheet music bore no composer's name, only a date, 1843. That year felt significant, but I didn't know why yet. I decided to play the melody myself, though I'm no virtuoso. My fingers fumbled at first, but the notes began to flow. The tune was haunting, almost otherworldly, with a rhythm that felt too modern. It didn't sound like anything from the 19th century. I stopped, puzzled, and checked the sheet again. The notation was precise, written in a steady hand. I couldn't place the style. It wasn't Beethoven or Mozart. It felt like something I'd heard on the radio, but that was impossible. I dug through old family records, searching for clues. A journal from 1843 mentioned a boy, only 6 years old, playing a violin. His name was Elias, a distant ancestor. The townsfolk called his music a gift from the heavens. But the journal hinted at something stranger, a song no one recognized. Elias was no ordinary child, according to the faded pages. He was quiet, often lost in thought, but his violin spoke volumes. Every evening at 6, he'd climb to the attic and play. The townsfolk would gather below, mesmerized by the sound. They swore it wasn't like any music of their time. Some called it divine, others whispered of witchcraft. I read on, my pulse quickening. The journal described the melody as futuristic, a word that didn't even exist back then. How could a child in 1843 play something so anachronistic? I needed to know more about Elias. The record showed he was frail, often sick, but fiercely dedicated to his music. His parents, simple farmers, couldn't explain his talent. No one could. I visited the town's historical society, clutching the journal. The librarian, an elderly woman with sharp eyes, recognized Elias's name immediately. She pulled out a box of letters from the 1840s. One letter, written by a local pastor, described Elias's performances in detail. The pastor was unsettled, noting that the boy's melody felt like it came from a time not yet born. I shivered reading those words. The letter mentioned a specific date, June 12, 1843. That night, Elias played for hours, and the town was entranced. Some claimed they saw lights in the sky as he played. The librarian raised an eyebrow, but said nothing. I felt like I was chasing a ghost. Back at the estate, I studied the sheet music again. The melody was complex, with syncopated rhythms and unusual chord progressions. It reminded me of 20th century composers, maybe even later. I played it again, this time recording it. When I listened back, the hairs on my neck stood up. It sounded like a piece I'd heard in a movie, but I couldn't pinpoint which one. I searched online, uploading the audio to music identification apps. Nothing matched. The melody was unique, yet it felt like it belonged to another era. I wondered if Elias had somehow composed it himself. But how could a 6-year-old create something so advanced? The journal mentioned a strange event tied to Elias's playing. One night, a traveler passing through the town heard the melody and fainted. When he woke, he babbled about music from the stars. The townsfolk dismissed him as mad, but I wasn't so sure. I found a sketch of Elias in the journal, a small boy with intense eyes, clutching his violin. The sketch was dated 1843, the same year as the music. I couldn't stop thinking about the traveler's words. Was there something cosmic about this melody? I laughed at myself for even considering it. But the more I dug, the less absurd it seemed. I reached out to a musicologist friend, sending her the sheet music. She called me within hours, her voice trembling with excitement. She couldn't identify the composer either, but she confirmed the melody structure was anachronistic. It used techniques not common until the early 1900s. She suggested I check the violin itself for clues. I examined it closely, finding a faint carving on the back. E. 1843. Elias's initials, perhaps? The wood was old but pristine, as if it hadn't aged. I wondered if the violin held the key to the mystery. Every clue pointed to something impossible. I returned to the Historical Society, digging deeper into Elias's life. A faded newspaper clipping described a festival in 1843 where Elias performed. The article called his music a glimpse of eternity. But it also mentioned a controversy. Some townsfolk demanded he stop playing, fearing his talent was unnatural. Elias's parents defended him, but the pressure grew. By late 1843, the journal said Elias stopped performing publicly. He retreated to the attic, playing only at 6 each evening. The melody never changed, always the same haunting tune. I felt a chill imagining him alone up there. I couldn't shake the feeling that the melody was a message. But from whom? And when? I started researching time anomalies, half expecting to find nothing. To my surprise, there were stories of strange occurrences in 1843, unexplained lights, odd sounds, even reports of future visions. Most were dismissed as folklore, but they aligned too closely with Elias's story. I wondered if the melody was somehow connected to these events. Was Elias channeling something beyond his time? I needed to recreate his routine. That night, at exactly 6, I played the melody in the attic. The air felt heavier, almost electric. As the last note faded, I heard a faint hum, like a distant vibration. It wasn't my imagination. I checked my recording, and it was there. The sound wasn't part of the melody. I played it again the next evening, and the hum returned, louder this time. I felt like I was on the edge of something huge. The journal mentioned Elias's final performance in December 1843. After that, he fell ill and never played again. He died shortly after, at only 7 years old. The townsfolk mourned, but some whispered he was taken by the stars. I didn't know what to believe anymore. I decided to trace the violin's origins, hoping it held more answers. The Historical Society had no records of where it came from, but an old luthier in town examined it and was stunned. He said the craftsmanship was unlike anything from the 1840s. The wood, the varnish, even the strings, they seemed too advanced. He estimated the violin was made with techniques not used until decades later. I asked how that was possible. He just shrugged and said, "Some things don't add up." I left his shop more confused than ever. The violin was as much a mystery as the melody. I went back to the journal, rereading every entry about Elias. One passage stood out. His mother wrote that he claimed the melody came to him in dreams. He said a shining man taught him the notes. I paused, my mind racing. Was this just a child's imagination, or something more? The journal described Elias's dreams as vivid, almost prophetic. He spoke of machines in the sky and cities of glass. In 1843, such ideas were unthinkable. I wondered if Elias was seeing the future. The melody felt like proof of that. I contacted a historian specializing in 19th century music. I sent her the sheet music and Elias's story. She was skeptical but intrigued. After a week, she emailed me, saying the melody resembled a piece published in 1927. But that piece was obscure, never widely known. How could Elias have played it 84 years earlier? She suggested the sheet music might be a forgery, but the paper and ink matched the 1840s perfectly. I thanked her but knew this wasn't a hoax. Something extraordinary had happened in that attic. I started experimenting with the melody, playing it at different times of day. Nothing matched the strange hum I'd heard at 6 o'clock. I researched the significance of that hour. In 1843, 6 in the evening was when the town grew quiet, the day's work done. Maybe that stillness amplified whatever Elias was tapping into. I read about ley lines and energy fields, grasping at straws. Some theories suggested certain places could act as conduits for time or energy. Was the attic one of those places? I was starting to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but I couldn't stop. I found a reference to the traveler who fainted in 1843. His name was Thomas Reed, a merchant from Boston. A letter he wrote described the melody as a song from a world not yet built. He claimed it stirred memories he hadn't lived. Reed vanished from the town records after that night. I searched for him online, finding nothing definitive. But a genealogy site mentioned a Thomas Reed, who later wrote a book about time travel in 1850. It was dismissed as fiction, but I ordered a copy anyway. Maybe he knew something I didn't. The book arrived, its pages brittle and yellowed. Reed's writing was erratic, almost feverish. He described hearing a melody that unraveled time. He swore it came from a child in a small town. I knew he meant Elias. Reed theorized that certain sounds could bridge past and future. He called it temporal resonance. I rolled my eyes but kept reading. He claimed the melody he heard in 1843 echoed in his dreams for years. He tried to recreate it but failed. I felt a pang of sympathy for him. I was chasing the same ghost. I returned to the attic, determined to understand the hum. I set up microphones, hoping to capture it clearly. At 6, I played the melody again. The hum was stronger, almost like a voice. I analyzed the recording, finding frequencies that didn't match the violin's range. They were synthetic, like something from a synthesizer. In 1843, such sounds didn't exist. I felt like I was losing my grip on reality. Was the attic somehow amplifying a signal from another time? I needed to know more about Elias's dreams. The journal mentioned Elias's shining man again. He described the figure as kind, with eyes like stars. The man taught him the melody note by note, night after night. Elias's mother thought it was a guardian angel. I wasn't so sure. I researched historical accounts of visions or apparitions in the 1840s. There were plenty, but none matched Elias's description. I wondered if the shining man was a projection, maybe from another era. The idea sounded insane, but so did everything else about this. I contacted a physicist friend, asking about time anomalies. He laughed but humored me. He said quantum physics allows for theoretical time slips, but there's no proof. He suggested sound waves could, in rare cases, interact with electromagnetic fields. Maybe the attic's unique acoustics played a role. I thanked him, feeling no closer to answers. That night, I played the melody again, focusing on the hum. It felt like it was trying to tell me something. I recorded it for hours, losing track of time. The recordings revealed something new. Faint whispers embedded in the hum. I couldn't make out words, but they sounded human. I enhanced the audio, isolating the frequencies. The whispers grew clearer, repeating a phrase. Find the source. My heart pounded. Was this Elias? Or the shining man? I played the melody again, pleading for clarity. The whispers stopped, replaced by a single, clear note. It wasn't from my violin. I looked around the attic, half expecting to see someone. The room was empty, but I wasn't alone. I decided to investigate the attic itself. I tapped the walls, searching for hidden compartments. Under a loose floorboard, I found a small metal box. Inside was a locket with a tiny portrait of Elias. His eyes stared back, intense and knowing. A note was tucked inside, written in the same hand as the sheet music. It read, "The song is the key." I sat back, stunned. Was this Elias's message to me? I clutched the locket, feeling a connection to him. The melody was more than music, it was a bridge. But to where? I researched the estate's history, looking for anything unusual. The land had been a Native American site before the house was built. Some tribes believed certain places could speak to time. I didn't know if I believed that, but it fit. The attic's location, the hum, the melody, it all pointed to something beyond normal. I contacted a local historian who knew the area's indigenous history. She confirmed the land was considered sacred, a place of visions. Elias's attic might have been built on a temporal fault line. I was in over my head. I played the melody every evening at 6, hoping for more whispers. They returned, always faint, always saying, "Find the source." I felt like Elias was guiding me. I studied the violin again, noticing tiny etchings along the bridge. They weren't random. They formed a pattern, like a code. I photographed them and sent them to a cryptographer friend. She said it resembled a 20th century cipher, not something from 1843. How was this possible? The violin was rewriting history. I started dreaming of Elias. In my dreams, he played the melody while the shining man watched. The man's face was blurred, but his presence was warm. I woke each time with a melody in my head. I began to wonder if I was part of this mystery. Was I meant to find a violin? I checked the journal again, finding a new detail. Elias's mother wrote that he predicted someone would carry the song forward. Was that someone me? The thought was overwhelming, but I couldn't stop now. I visited a sound engineer, hoping to decode the whispers. He analyzed my recordings, confirming the frequencies were unnatural. He said they resembled signals used in modern communication tech. I asked if they could be from the future. He laughed, but didn't dismiss it entirely. He suggested the attic's acoustics might amplify certain vibrations. I returned home, setting up more equipment in the attic. At 6, I played the melody, and the whispers grew louder. They said, "The source is near." I felt closer to answers, but more lost than ever. I found an old map of the estate, hidden in the journal's back cover. It marked the attic with a strange symbol. I researched it, discovering it was used in ancient texts to denote time's edge. My mind reeled. Was the attic a portal of some kind? I spent days studying the symbol, finding references in obscure books. They described places where time could fold. I didn't fully understand, but I knew the attic was special. Elias had tapped into something extraordinary. I had to keep going. One night, the hum in the attic became a roar. I played the melody, and the air shimmered. For a moment, I saw a figure, Elias, holding his violin. He looked at me, then vanished. My heart raced as I checked my equipment. The cameras caught nothing, but the audio recorded a clear voice. "You are the bridge." I sat in the dark, trembling. Was I meant to carry the melody into the future? I didn't know how, but I felt Elias's presence. The song was alive, and so was he in some way. I contacted a paranormal researcher, desperate for perspective. She listened to my story, unfazed. She said certain melodies could resonate across time, especially in places like the attic. She suggested Elias was a conduit, channeling a future song. I asked about the Shining Man. She theorized he was a projection from another era, guiding Elias. It sounded crazy, but it fit every clue. I thanked her and returned to the attic. I needed to play the melody one more time, to understand its purpose. At 6, I played with all my heart, pouring myself into the notes. The hum returned, stronger than ever. The whispers became a chorus, chanting, "The source is you." I stopped, tears streaming down my face. I realized the melody wasn't just Elias's, it was mine now. I was part of its journey, linking past and future. The attic glowed faintly, and I felt at peace. Elias had passed the song to me, and I had to share it. The mystery wasn't solved, but it didn't need to be. The melody was enough. I'm still uncovering the secrets of Elias's song, but I know it's bigger than me. It's a thread connecting time, a gift from a boy who saw beyond his years. I've recorded the melody and shared it online, hoping others will feel its power. The attic remains my sanctuary, where I play at 6 each evening. The hum is softer now, but it's always there. I don't know where this journey ends, but I'm not alone. Elias is with me, and so is the Shining Man. If you're as captivated by this mystery as I am, join me. Subscribe to my channel, and let's unravel time together. If this story of a boy, a violin, and a song from the future gripped you, don't miss what comes next. Subscribe to my channel for more mysteries that challenge reality. Hit that button, and let's explore the impossible together.